right, how's it going, guys? Today, my name is Caleb Kioh, founder of WalletGyde, and we have quite a guest showing up at WalletGyde's podcast. Her name is Natalie Levy. And before we actually get started, I want to give you guys a little bit of background of the caliber of a speaker Natalie is, okay? Because I'm telling you, this is actually going to be one of my favorite podcasts, I can already tell. But let me just give you some background. So Natalie Levy is the managing partner of She's Independent, right? A woman-first investment group focused on financial empowerment through angel investing and investment education. Right. So her background includes, former Wall Street derivatives trader, right? Private equity experience, enterprise technology, sales leadership, is it correct? 45 plus angel investments. Wow. I'm telling you, she's no joke. Multiple liquidity events averaging 20x returns, pre-A investor across industry sectors, and on and on and on. Like I said, we have quite a guest here. So welcome to the WalletGyde podcast, Natalie.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So the name of this podcast, right, is Angel Investing, Market Cycles, and the Inner Game of Entrepreneurship. Because we know, first of all, I'm sure the landscape of investing there's a lot of moving pieces, right? There's a lot of noise, I would imagine, that's happening. And you're here to help us understand what this noise is all about, but as well as help us navigate through the noise as well. You know what I'm saying? And understand, help entrepreneurs as well as even, let's say, investors, right? Understand what's the mindset that's needed to navigate through the noise. So super excited to dive in, and let's definitely get started and talk about why this conversation matters, right? And so let's talk about the landscape of investment, and start, because you're in the angel investing space, right? Let's talk about that first, and what makes angel investing different from, let's say even VCs and other investment.
Sure. Yeah. So angel investing, in the kind of simplest way to describe it, is an individual choosing to invest in private companies. Okay. So if you invest in stock, for example, you buy a share of Apple, you buy a share of Meta, that's in the public markets. When you're an angel, you're allocating to private companies. And when you're an angel investor, and it kind of goes with the name, but you're basically choosing to participate as a non-professional investor. I'm not doing this on behalf of my clients or others. I'm doing it with my own capital. So let me say that again. I'm investing my own capital, my own, what's in the bank, into these private companies. Wow. And it's very different and nuanced, but think about it like a venture firm or a private equity firm. They're investing on behalf of the LPs, limited partners, people that invest in the fund. Okay. And so me as an angel and us as an angel group, we're investing on behalf of ourselves. Wow. How we want to invest. And typically that's going to be earlier stage. Sure. But as an angel, you might be a super angel. You might be choosing to, write $500,000 checks, couple $1 million. Like, we're not doing that, right? Like, we might be writing $5,000 checks, $50,000 checks, collectively $100,000 checks. But at the end of the day, we're typically doing earlier in the fundraising journey.
Okay. No, I like that makes a lot of sense. So then, is it just you, or it sounds like you said you have a team of people?
Yeah.
Are you guys also like trying to raise your fund as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. So I have an institutional finance background, meaning I've done this professionally. I've been angel investing now for about 2 decades. And I really wanted to create something that I wanted to see in the world, right? Like so many of us that have had a journey of, call it adversity, being told no, doors closed. So for me, I felt like it was really values aligned to create a space and an investing network and group and community where others could step in and launch as investor. And it's not just my portfolio or my wallet, let's use that language, yes. But it was our collective wallets and portfolios. And so every time, someone comes in and says, well, I don't know, and then they become an investor, that's the change I want to see in the world, right? I see. And so I have a personal portfolio of about 45 investments, as we discussed. And then as a group, we've invested in 16 different companies. 3 have been follow-ons. So actually more checks than, 16, and we're about to do, I think, 2 more. So basically reinvesting. But the group or the individual angels can decide if they want to allocate or participate when we choose to invest. It's not a fund. And actually, we're not even going down a fund route. Okay. A lot of angels may want to create a group and may want to start a fund, and maybe that's their, goal and direction. For me, and I'm very open about this kind of stuff, I like money and I really like values. And I like, the mission-driven nature in which I allocate capital and show up in the world. And I bring that to, how I operate this investment group.
Man, so important, so powerful. Let's talk a little bit about, first of all, the values for sure. But I mean, it seemed like you were doing pretty well in Wall Street, and you had a nice little background there. What made you transition from that background that you had there into angel investing, and what values did values had anything to do with it?
It's a great question. So I'll just say, I'm going to guess, even though we haven't spoken a bunch off the record, that your experience in life, we probably had a lot of similarities, right? Like, we haven't looked like the OG deal maker, the old school Wall Street dude. And so a lot of doors, again, weren't open to me. I didn't feel, valued, supported. It wasn't an environment that I felt culturally was one that I could ever really excel in, let alone be healthy, among. And so I ran like kicking and screaming for my Wall Street experience. Never thought I'd circle back. But when a couple of my, colleagues from the bank started an angel group, I was like, this sounds fun. I can make my own decisions. I can choose what rooms I want to be in.
Nice.
I, as a woman, can have influence and say, and again, make choices, not on behalf of a client, but on behalf of my wallet.
Sure.
Right? And so that journey of starting to establish myself as investor separate from the way the guys did it. And then even getting into private equity, it was like, again, really interesting, fast-paced, really bright individuals. But again, the culture, these things were lacking.
Sure.
And so I would say it was both choice to leave and also being pushed out because I was so authentically me.
Sure.
And a woman who, didn't want to be put into a box of behave like this and say yes and do everything nicely.
Right.
And so that journey ultimately was, into angel investing was a beautiful approach to agency with respect to my financial flows. And then talk about the values, just further uncovering them every time you get, call it split, broken open by, a tough experience. Death, loss, misogyny, Me Too, broken body. All of those things allowed me to more deeply uncover, who am I?
Sure.
What do I need? What do I want in this world, in this life? Right? And for me, it was great. I'm going to actually accept, and if you hold up or look at that book that I just shared with you, my shadow self, which is this kind of finance D-bag, right, which I was running from, and I said, wait, I'm really good at money. I'm really good at financials and data. So I'm going to embrace this, and I'm going to do it in my own way.
I love it.
And that really allowed me to reestablish and step in with so much more agency and just build this, place of conviction from where I write checks and how I operate my business.
I love that story. Have you always been into money, like ever since you were young? Like,
it's a great question.
When they ask you what you want to be, I
know. So this is kind of hilarious. I'll just say it.
Sure.
I was on a date with a guy the other day. Didn't go that great.
Oh.
He's not going to listen to this. And he's a radiologist. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember when I was a young kid, I thought that was a cool job, an anesthesiologist, because you made a lot of money. I was money-minded from, the start.
Wow.
I literally would save money and stick it into a, stuffed bear.
Sure.
And it would be money stuffed because I would sew it back together. And then I'd be like, hey, Dad, put this in the bank and double it. Money was a love language for us. I don't know. We're Jewish. Maybe it was the ancestry. Maybe it was we're nerds.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, for me, money, math, data, it was a way to say, I've got this. I've got a big brain. And yeah, I might be, a girl or young woman with long hair, but look at my brain, look at my bank account. I don't have to be beholden, and I'm an independent individual. And I think that's always been this thread,
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, and let's tie that back into, the career that you found yourself in.
Sure.
Meaning Wall Street, and then there's a story here that's unfolding. And because you, as you were mentioning, someone that loves money, can understand the numbers, could see the importance, right, of what money is all about, and then found yourself in an environment where lots of money is happening, lots of money is being flowed through, but yet you still, it sounds like you still, something inside, you weren't really satisfied with perhaps maybe the values that were being upheld or whatnot in that environment. So like, walk us through the difference, because I feel like, this unfortunately is the situation where you do have certain like really good-hearted people that, also love money, but then realize there's this like interesting balance of, wanting to be wealthy, wanting to be a good steward, but yet still realizing like, oh my gosh, the narrative behind money, unfortunately, especially when you're in Wall Street or whatnot, it starts becoming hard to be good. So what's your take on that?
It's super interesting. First, I think we all have money trauma. So let me just state that, right? Yeah. And recognition that money in and of itself, like, that's not bad. Sure. I think anything can be negative. Yep. I would never say money defines me. I would never say my portfolio defines me. I think if you get to the point where you're just like, I'm accreting more and more and more, and I just want wealth, like, that can turn bad. But I don't think money inherently, which is on the quantum level, let's talk about energy, like, it's not a bad thing. Yeah. I think it's finding your flow, and it's finding the alignment. It's working through the trauma. The scarcity, whatever you have. I was on this brilliant panel yesterday that I led with the Colorado Women's Chamber with 3 panelists, all women, diverse backgrounds, all playing different parts of finance and money. And we're up there unapologetically saying, we love money. And we love incorporating this lived experience, our values, being intentional with flow, right? We don't just have to be one or the other. We're both. Sure. We're all of that. And if you want to just be maximizing your portfolio and you want to, leave it as legacy to your kids, do whatever you do. Sure. But you can step into a conscious behavior, and aligned flows. And so, I'm not apologetic that I just bought a Porsche. Like, great. Like, but to step in and to flow this in ways that serve, and to feel like I'm so aligned with how I live and move in the world, that's the brilliance. It's not that I'm an investor. It's the way that I show up and I share and I direct these money flows. I think that's what's incredible about it.
And I promise you we're going to get into your investment question.
You're fine.
But like, this is, you're really nailing a very important, piece here that I really want the audience to also, soak in terms of, you mentioned, words such as flow and all these really important parts about money. And what would you say is the value, or let's say the value proposition, if we want to use that word, or the benefit to people that go this route with money, as opposed to just, being very, that Wall Street, like, I need to continue to rake up more and more and more, which, once again, like you mentioned, nothing necessarily wrong with that, especially if you have future plans with your family and leaving a legacy. That's very important, right? But we all know the other side that, unfortunately, just chasing money can bring. Yeah. So, what would you say is the benefit of having a good balance of that?
I think everything in life is about balance, like these days. I think the more we sit back and we take space and we check in with ourselves and learn about, you want to call it, spiritually, our soul's journey or awakening. I mean, it's flow, and it's finding this middle ground. It's finding the balance. And that you don't arrive. It's this journey. Yes. And if you're always like, let me find more, let me wait until, like, are you really alive, and are you really enjoying what you have? And so you can have no wealth and be so wealthy. You can have no money, I should say, and be so wealthy. Okay. Community, family, health, all these things. Like, what is wealth? What is fulfillment? And so many people get through a meaningless career, wake up, and they're like, I have money, but like, I'm not happy. What am I doing? I'm in a marriage that's not fulfilling, all these things. Sure. So I'm a big proponent of, the more time we spend with ourselves, and the more time we do that introspection of, and what do I actually want? And, what are my values, and how do I line and live in this world where it's like flowing in that direction, whether, again, it's money, it's my time and energy, it's my focus. Showing up in this space, like in community with people that, resonate with you. I mean, that changes everything. And like, a bunch of the people I used to work with that have made a bunch of money, like I have no doubt they are unhappy and not well, like physically, you know?
And they have the money.
And they have the money because money in and of itself, right? Like if you're just going for something and maximizing something, like, is that wellness? Like Brian Johnson, let's just throw that in there for a second. You know, like if you're just focused on one thing and optimizing for one thing, but not looking at the bigger picture, just biometrics, like is that healthy?
Right.
And can you achieve balance? Can you achieve like a good flow? I don't know. Right. I don't think so, but that's just my take.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I'll just even touch on one more thing that I want you to, kind of enlighten or even harp on a little bit more too, because you mentioned about the trauma side of money. Yeah. And I don't think, unfortunately, that gets talked enough about. Matter of fact, I mean, the subject of money doesn't even get talked about a lot. What they talk about how there are those, key topics that most people like to stay away from: money, religion, all that sort of stuff, politics. So, which is insane because all of those topics are super important for, how we live, right? So,
and building skills. And finding out how we want to evolve.
Exactly. So, we are all fighting trauma. I know, I grew up in a very religious home, and, there was that statement, money is the root of all evil. And, so, I know I had to do my work to overcome those sort of trauma when it comes to money. And fortunately now I'm very much like yourself in terms of accepting it and embracing it and seeing the importance of it and understanding the fact that we have to be good stewards, right, of it. Yeah. But just interested in hearing your points of view of like whether it's either money traumas that you've heard or even others, and how that could affect people when they get older.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think everybody has money trauma on some level. You could have money. You could feel bad about where it came from. Sure. You could not have money and you could be in debt and just feel guilty about like even addressing these things. So I'll share an example of a trauma, like a real thing from my life. And part of why I operate as I do today, and part of why I show up so much to say, how am I bringing women with me? So it wasn't just my experience, but we lost my mom, 2019 to suicide. She was out of divorce and was fine financially, but didn't really know how to exercise that financial agency. So it stressed her, and it was one of the things, right? And so, thank you. And for me, right, like first, I don't think we ever get over the trauma. I think we can do the work and like continue to get to a place that feels good and better, but like it's ongoing work. Yes. And so for me, it's, the way we lost my mom and the relationship and the evolving of what that looks like, but also the recognition of so many women haven't stepped into that financial agency, right? And so it's this kind of ongoing work. And even me, it's like, yes, I have money, and I sometimes have a scarcity mindset. So it's like the ongoing work to find a good place. And the work with, she's an appendant in the angel group that I have. My mom's money now flows with mine. And so how beautiful to kind of change what was this kind of financial trauma of how I inherited a little bit from her to flow it to such a meaningful cause. I love that. And bring other women in that journey.
And that, it sounds like what you mean by flow, like money flow.
That's actual flow.
When the money is flowing towards impactful things as opposed to just materialistic things.
Yeah. And for me, I'm like, I'm not investing in like another widget or a gadget. What do I want to see in the world? I love it. And I'm so glad in this world of like, look what's happening with AI and software. But, wow, women as a population, we've been understudied, underserved, underinvested in. And so 60% of the deals that we've invested in as a group, because we're predominantly women, have been women's health and healthcare. Love it. Novel technology, big opportunity, things that change the lives of women. That some men as investors were like, that's niche, postmenopausal women. And we're like, well, let me tell you, that's going to be half the population, And
do you have a wife?
I know, exactly. Do you know any women? Do you interact with women, the female gender? Yeah. But it's like, to be able to show up and say, how do we want to flow this and what experience do we want? Wow. Because if I invest in a publicly traded company, they don't care. Sure. But you invest in a private company, early stage, like that matters. And if you do good diligence and you're, networked so you can like get good deal flow and all these things, you can make smart investments too. I mean, build a portfolio. Don't just do like 1 or 2 checks, but it's really a tremendous asset class.
Man,
Yeah.
wow. Love it. Love it. Okay. So good stuff, right? And now let's transition, because I think we really nailed it on, just all the different things that money brings in terms of whether it's trauma or just behavioral patterns. But now I would like to talk about the market cycle, and let's talk about the investment landscape, the angel investment landscape,
Sure.
right? I know over the last 5 years, it's been pretty, with COVID till now, it's just been a lot. Let's talk about what the landscape has looked like, let's say post-COVID for sure, but over the last couple of years, and then in particularly this quarter, what are you seeing in the investment landscape, angel investment landscape this year?
Yeah. So I guess first I'll kind of ground us and say that as a non-professional investor, I can focus my time where I want, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it means I'm also not like constantly poring over like, the cap tables of like trends of what's happening. I'll share more from experience of what we're seeing in the market.
Okay.
So post-COVID, I would say I did have some exits and interesting like high valuation data points like early on out of COVID. But the market's really gotten pretty soft to the point of if there's M&A or if there are transactions happening with private companies, the valuations have not been stellar. And I've seen a lot more of like M&A that's not, here's a cash exit opportunity. A lot of companies have pulled back on their spend, their burn, because they just want to keep the lights on, and they don't know if they're going to be able to go to market and get a bunch more capital. And by the way, I'm typically investing pre-Series A, sometimes around Series A, but it matters also like where you are in the life cycle.
Sure.
And there's been a lot of follow-ons and a lot of, hey, we're gonna bridge the round. And the reason for this is when the market's not up, right, and it's sideways or down or continues sideways, you don't necessarily want to show a watermark valuation lower than what it was. And so those ideas of it's not a priced round, it's a bridge. The terms are going to be based on the next valuation that's going to happen in the future, or we're going to raise a round from insiders because we know it's really tough in the market. These are still indicators that it's not a easy time to just like tap liquidity or new funds in the market. But also I will say, it's kind of tremendous opportunity if you know how to play and you're plugged in, because when it's harder for these companies to raise, it's also really great investment opportunities for us on the investment side. And I always remind people this because I have a professional investment background and a lot of people don't. What you're feeling in your body, like, don't invest because of that. Don't invest because of the YOLO. When the market's going up and you're all excited, that's probably a time to sell, frankly, right? And when the market's like sideways or down and you're like, ooh, like this hurts, that might be a good time to think about scooping up some equity. So it's one of those things where I'm not saying everyone buy. And by the way, this is not financial advice. This is not guidance.
Right.
But truly, when sentiment is off, like that probably means valuations have come down and you can have good opportunity. And like, that's what we're seeing. We're really excited about these checks that we're doing right now.
Nice.
And we're unapologetic and don't feel bad if something's not right for us. But you can't just bank on, a company's going to raise a bunch and they're going to burn a bunch and they're not going to be very smart about it and they're going to keep raising. Like, that's not the environment today. And now with AI, like, what is moat? What is IP? How well can the team execute, right? These are all really, really key questions.
Well, by the way, great insights there. And I'm glad you brought up the word moat, right? Because I feel like a lot of investors and a lot of people are starting to use, I don't know when that word became a word, but it's now starting to be like used everywhere.
Sure.
So for the audience, could you describe what moat is? And
sure. So first I'm just going to say IP, right? Intellectual property. And that's something that there could be patents, trademarks, you name it, which can be respected or not depending on the country and whatever, the observance. But basically, IP is one category. But then there's the internal secrets, right? Like the trade secrets of how you build or the data set you've amassed and how you can learn off of it. Moat is basically what you've built and what your internal knowledge. It's not necessarily, again, like patents or, trademarks or these kinds of things, but you've internalized and you have this like maybe great information and data storage or proprietary algorithms, right? Like this thing that won't allow competitors just to jump right in.
I see.
You know, think of the moat around the castle kind of concept imagery.
Yeah.
Protects you. And it protects you maybe for so long.
Right. Because they're eventually going to figure it out.
Penetrate the gates.
Part. Right. And especially even in this AI space. And I think there's a great opportunity to probably jump into the AI landscape and what it's doing to the investment landscape. Let's talk about, because, you know, given the fact that now, I mean, we of course have the frontier models, right? And we have to try to understand like what is their moat, given the fact that all of them are kind of basically the top 5, if you want to say what the, you know, OpenAI, Gemini, Claude, and Grok, and then if you want to throw in DeepSeek and whatnot, it's like they all have data that they're training on. They're all working on a chatbot. It's interesting to like identify their moat, but of course I know internally they have their own ways of training the chatbot that might be different from another. But you know, how much is AI influencing the current investment landscape?
Gosh, yeah, my gosh, we're already in a metaverse. You know, like some people are adopting, some people aren't.
Yeah.
We've talked a bit about this, and like. I am a Claude Code convert.
Yes.
And I wasn't coding for the last like 20 plus years, and I'm like building.
That's epic.
We have access to source. We have access to this amazing resource. And again, you know, what is moat in this type of build and environment? It might have dissipated. It might disappear. Gosh, like I don't even know where to begin. What I will say is a lot of smart and strategic investors for a year now I've been chatting with around AI.
Sure.
And we've recognized that there were a lot of companies pretending or thinking that they had a strong AI strategy when it was like a light wrapper. Yeah. And it's tough. I mean but there's nothing wrong with having an AI wrapper. So don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But can you execute? Can you scale? So that stuff matters, because if you think that's a moat or you think that's protectable, like that's where you lose me. Because really what have you built, and really what's proprietary, really how strong is the execution? Yeah. And so I know a lot of investors where, you know, we're basically like, oh, another, like, it's not actually true AI if it's not one of those, you know, main players where it's really nascent to like what they're doing, like the real core of it. Sure. So I know a lot of investors where like, you know, AI hardware or middleware, like there's the other things that are really great and cool, but also like
and all that.
with like build, I don't like, this is a crazy new time and market, and I don't know.
Well, and given
I love
that,
investing in products, real things too. Like I don't forget what's human.
100%. No, and that's so fair. And I appreciate your honesty too of like saying, because AI right now, it's like this wild west. And people are still even trying to figure out, I mean, everybody knows for the most part, the value proposition, but in terms of if you were to get into this space, like what is your competitive advantage? Yeah. And, you know, as a fintech startup company that actually transitioned into building a financial chatbot, it's funny, or it's interesting that we are talking about this moat, and I intentionally asked you that question because I was talking to AI about like, hey, what is our moat? Like, what is WalletGyde's moat as a financial chatbot? And it's interesting that I was able to identify it. Like, well, of course, ChatGPT helped me out, or I think it was Grok too, and I was speaking to both of them. And
you're double timing. Sorry.
What's that?
You're double timing. I love it. I love that you're doing multiple models. I'm just doing my Claude.
Oh yeah, no, I like, for me, like I want to know like the whole industry, and I'm so interested in all the models and want to see which one is the best. And of course, right now, you know, Claude Opus and you know, ChatGPT, and they're leading in the code inside, and they're like button heads, you know. So I think it's great for the users. Yeah, when
I agree.
This sort of competition happens.
Well,
right?
Today we'll see what happens in the future.
Right.
Are we still going to be human? I'm kind of joking, but
I still want to be, but
I do too.
Maybe a hybrid. I don't know. But like I realized, so the moat comes in with really the training, like. So I started talking to a lot of people about, AI and AI agents and chatbots. And I started realizing not a lot of people know how to actually build a chatbot. Like, they don't know what the term embeddings are, or RAG, or even this other thing called tool calling, and all these technical sides of building a chatbot, that I realized, like, oh, like that knowledge and understanding. Now, of course, the frontier models, they're all doing it, but outside of them, I'm starting to realize there's very few people that understand the framework of actually how, and even the process of what constitutes a chatbot, and how that chatbot actually works based on your own specific data domain.
Yeah.
And because that we have our own specific domain, financial data, and we're training our chatbot based off of that specific domain.
Yeah.
In a way that other chatbots aren't doing, that becomes your moat, quote unquote. Of course, with all the other things and scaling, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But I started realizing, like, oh, wow. So we do have a moat. Because I would hear that term and I wouldn't know much about it. And then when I got told what our moat is, I was like, yes, I put it in a slide deck. But so, speaking of that, and I know you've gone all in to AI. What's your go-to AI systems? I know you kind of already talked about it, but let's talk about it a little bit more for the audience to know your go-to.
Yeah. So maybe I'll just say Claude is my go-to. Like, nice. I let my dad know I'm in a long-term relationship, partnership. Which I can make the bolder joke, right? It's an open. He's seeing a lot of people on his end, but I'm only seeing the one bot on mine.
Nice.
I'm using it for so much. If you're not technical and you just want to use Claude Chat, great. Building skills, repeatable things that you're doing to basically simulate or create a bit of like a chief of staff type of role or admin, amazing. I've built a second brain for our organization, so that allows us to do all these other things better, and up-leveled marketing, branding, you name it. I did build some chatbots.
Nice.
And I think the thing, just really quick, because you talked about that and that's your core, piece, who you are in your information repository and the way you train the bot, that is moat. That is absolutely moat. So we're using, chat bots that I created because I was using a third party, and frankly, like they weren't good. And so I built these, and it's our information and it's our voice. And like, it's everything. If you pour yourself into and you're creating a niche, beautiful, needed solution, that has real value versus some crappy chatbot that somebody can get up and running, or, doesn't have the great data set. But I also think, trust, integrity, like who you're buying from, like this stuff increasingly matters. Look at what the younger generation cares about. But back to what I'm building. So Claude Code, I just went in hard. We've been operational for 7 years and have a bunch of videos and content, from numerous conversations. And so to take our data and say, we're not actually using outside data. We're using our internal proprietary. This was our voice. This is badass content. For example, ran an advanced investor accounting workshop yesterday talking about, these really great concepts. And all of that just accretive to our knowledge base, right? And so it's been a lot of fun. And I even soft launched another, kind of website, and you can call it a product.
You're just launching at this point, right?
I know, with Claude, with me and my boy Claude.
Love it.
But yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like, sure. I'm just using Claude, but it's not just anything. Like, this is insane. From, Claude Chat to Claude Code. I never even did Cowork because my Apple is, like, I guess out of date, so it didn't even have the right thing to support it. But it's amazing. Like, you can... If you're open to, and I don't think everyone's open to this, if you're open and curious to learning and building, trying things and failing, picking up the pieces and trying again and again and again and again, there's so much, right? There's so much opportunity.
Yeah. Love that so much. And do you feel like that is the new skill set that's required in this era, this new, I don't know which not industrial, of course, but like this new AI,
this new age, industrial revolution,
right? Technological revolution. Do you feel like that's a super important skill? So I'll ask that question, and then on top of that, ask how many investors do you see are also adapting to utilize an AI or even invest in AI companies?
Sure.
Yeah.
Gosh, first let's go to the first question, which is, what kind of skills do we think are needed with where we're going? Yeah. There's all different personalities. There's all different types of people. I don't think everybody should or can be an AI builder. I just don't think it.
Really?
I don't think that. I think that some people want to be led. Some people want the tools that are, pre-built enough, and they're never going to want to like build the thing, even with widgets. So I think there's always a place where somebody, gets fed up something and they can pay for it, or that's maybe like, I don't know, the general access point.
Sure.
I don't think everybody has the technical and kind of data skills to be open to trying and learning and failing.
Now, do you think though you even need to be technical, given the fact that like AI is like this intelligence that you just communicate with? So isn't it more of like a skill set of like curiosity and wanting to like talk to this thing, as opposed to, because I'm noticing.
I think the question is, what are you trying to get out of it? Because if you're trying to build something like from scratch, let's just say from scratch.
Okay.
And you have no technical or analytical knowledge or background, I think you miss a lot. And I'm not saying AI won't continue to get better, because it is going to.
Right.
But AI also lies, and it pushes back in ways that and if you don't have some of this background, like, I just think you're going to miss it in the build. And I also think AI is like amplifying what's already kind of inside of us. So if somebody loves to digest information, they're going to use it to digest more information. If somebody loves to go to market and optimize, like, that's what they're going to try to do. So it's like, to me, it is so a choose your own adventure. If you don't have any technical interest, I don't think you're going to get to a great place of build. I'll just say that.
For sure.
And even prompting, right? Like, can I teach somebody who never understood anything technical how to think like a computer?
Right.
And in logic patterns? I can't necessarily teach that, but I can teach people how to interact in ways, but they're never going to do it the same way I do it. And that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Different personality types. And I had a brilliant conversation with a woman. She's a biotech exec in Boulder at like a unicorn. And we literally just earlier today, we're chatting in Boulder, and we talked about this. It's that great, people can have curiosity, but there's also the capacity piece, you know? And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I think there are roles and things that, are very human that we always want in this world, and maybe people will lean more into because of now the build capability with AI. But I don't think it's fair or expected that everybody's going to be a builder.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you feel like AI is specifically for builders, or what about creators as well?
Yeah, I think there's use cases for basically everyone, because even the chat function is such a simple one, like great access to information, right? Like that's, yes. Then again, do we want creators that were so human-based and they're creative to outsource creative? That scares me, and I know it's happening, and I know I also sometimes do it. But the discernment piece and being able to understand in the nuance of, oh gosh, this is AI speak, or oh, like this really missed the mark. Like, when do you step in? And also, what do you choose to outsource? We talked a little bit about dream states outside of this conversation today. I had a dream last night. So of course I was going to see you today. I had a dream where people were outsourcing so much, you're degrading your brain, right? And that's happening. Like you're degrading your brain because you're not thinking. Like, I had a dream about it last night, and it's stuff I think about.
Wow. We're in a good spot right now, because I feel like this is a very important topic as we are heading towards this new reality of AI being literally deployed in everything that we're doing. So then the question becomes like, what happens to the human experience when it comes to like thinking and and I actually did an AI speaking gig too, actually last week, and I didn't even intentionally know that I was going to talk about this concept called human in the loop orchestration. But I did, and it was in one of my slides, and I started realizing like this way of working with AI where AI becomes a co-pilot. right? And it's not like you're like either degrading yourself or like losing your thinking, but you're like having this partnership.
Totally.
And I kind of saw into the future and perhaps saw like maybe that's how AI is going to be, like, especially for the ones that are truly still like appreciate their own thinking skills but know that AI is like this multiplier effect.
You can basically, if you step into and recognize the importance of the management. Have you ever managed a really bright analyst who's a human? Because I have, and it's hard, right?
Yeah, it is hard.
And I'm glad I had the human experience because it's similar with the AI, right? And I love efficiency. I am an engineer by background, like an industrial engineer. We're all about optimizations. Like I'm all about efficiency, and it kills me sometimes because I'm like, oh my God, like why aren't we being more efficient? And in this age of now AI build and capability, I love efficiency, but I equally love the discernment to say, and when do you outsource? And when do you need to slow down and rest, pause? What was the prompt? What are you proofing? And you need the human eyes on it. How many people are shipping absolute garbage content written by AI, not even their own thoughts? It's so apparent. Like, what kind of world is this?
Yeah. And I think that is that world that we're going to be going into, where we're going to be able to discern between the people that use AI as a co-pilot.
Yeah.
And are, still there in this human in the loop orchestration. And that's why I started loving that term too, because, there's AI orchestration where agents communicate with each other and execute a given task. But then I started realizing, let's say you're a knowledge worker in corporate and you have to do a task, and we all have workflows within that task, right? Ideation, let's say you're a product manager, you have to ideate, and then you have to do UI UX, and then you have to do design and engineer. So now if you have AI systems that that can handle those different phases, then you, the human in the loop, can start utilizing the different types of AI systems to communicate with each other. And then I started realizing like, oh yeah, that's human in the loop or AI orchestration. And I started realizing that is actually going to be that superpower, quote unquote, that helps now the human optimize, be more efficient. What used to take 3 to 6 months with like product management can now take a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What do you think about something like that?
And you asked an earlier question. I want to close the loop on that one, which is, what skills are basically needed in this new world we live in? Yeah. I think if you're not adopting on some level, like you will be left behind. Like you will not be a strong worker in the economy and where we're going. Like I think that is probably true in most industries.
Right. And how many people do you see, both investors and entrepreneurs, that aren't adapting?
Now, that's a great question because I don't think they're screaming that from the rooftops. I will say, because you asked earlier about investors, a lot of investors do have use cases where they're like, like they know about, a bot that's basically created and they can interact with around diligence and, these things that are critical and kind of IP around their information. I think a lot of smart organizations are doing it, but also how big's the organization, how agile, right? Right. And some are on the sidelines really scared and they're going to kind of probably just stay behind or who knows, go out of business. But, to the point of this kind of human in the loop, I think it's a great piece to talk about, which is not full automation. And sometimes full automation may work and know what an LLM is, right? And this stuff is getting better all the time. But like, to me, wow, it can, I use Python and I grabbed like all these scripts and then it's crunching all this data and the way it runs the analysis, like, holy crap. Now the way that I think about my brand and, voice, and I'm not saying it like, it still does AI speak and I'm still training it, but the up-leveling of finally we have A/B testing running in our, email automation, and finally we have cron jobs automation running with our, member updates because we have this investment community and we want to do a lot around education. We do so much amazing human creative work to produce the content. How do we be smarter about disseminating, summarizing? So there's really smart ways to use AI where, again, I'm going to call it human-led AI in the loop. But that like we have so much content, and let's not waste our time like researching when we know AI does a great job at that.
I love what you just brought up there in terms of like your workflow, and I want the audience, because I think what we're talking about right now is so important, even just right now in the workforce, because companies are laying off a lot of people. Knowledge workers are being under attack.
Yeah.
Right. And we're literally talking about perhaps how they can have a career insurance.
Yeah.
With this human in the loop sort of scenario. So I would like, because you were already kind of mapping it out, and while you were mapping it out, I was like, I want you to go deeper into this.
Yeah. And I can give you examples.
Love it. And this is exactly what I want.
Yeah.
I want, for the audience, I want you, if you may, kind of map out like a workflow that you normally, let's say perhaps you used to do before, Claude Code, or any frontier models that you use. And then now how you're using AI systems to optimize your workflows.
Yeah, so I'll give you like some examples.
Yes.
So one example is we wanted this like chief of staff role. I say me. Okay, I'm the tech nerd. And so I built these Claude skills that basically were things that we were doing repeatedly within our Slack member community, within our, email digest going to members, within our newsletter, LinkedIn posts. And I basically created these Claude skills and trained them to say, great, these are things we do all the time. And out of the gate, Claude skill building, not that hard. You work with Claude to do it, and you can do it also in the other
Claude
systems.
Skills?
It's skills under Claude. Yeah.
Skills under Claude. Okay.
Yeah. So you pay the $20 a month, even though I blew out that usage. So I upgraded, obviously.
For sure.
But first I created these skills, and then it was, okay, again, how is adoption going? How is usage going? Oh, I'm making my team update to the latest skill, and then they have to run it. Let me automate it. So furthering this, so in practical, kind of use case application, in our Slack environment, we send a member update based on all the brilliant stuff we're doing, the talks, the education, the investment opportunities, the portfolio. We do that on Monday. And then we send a smaller one. We call it, Friday Delight, Friday Afternoon Delight, like something that's a little bit more, hey, we're going into the weekend. Yep. And so training Claude so that now what would have taken a couple of hours every week, now it's like, great. And I'm not saying it's perfect, right? I'm not saying the voice is like totally us. You can still see some AI speak, but that just saves so much time out of the gate. Our newsletter, right? We do it once a month. We're very lean. It was taking hours and hours and hours. And now it's, okay, Claude, go look at 30 days of our Slack. Go look at, this, go look at that. And then not only is it coming up with a newsletter concept, I'm like, give me 3 newsletter concepts. I want different subjects. I want different, like preview text. And then it will write it in our voice after we select which one. And it's like, I'm not saying outsource your creative per se, but we're including transcripts of our meetings that are human generated badass content, if I'm allowed to say that. And so it's then Claude or AI, whatever you're using, can then say, great, the humans came up with this. I'm going to pull from, it's not like it's coming out of nowhere. It's our content, but it's repackaged, repurposed in a much more efficient way where it's not, what did we say? Let's follow that thread. Let's put this all together. Hours and hours saved. I will say out of building for a handful of hours, I saved us like 300 hours over the next like 6 months at a minimum. Yeah.
And that's the power of like adapting and having that human in the loop, right? Workflow orchestration, right? And when I even started seeing it too as one that has adapted to AI, super early, I can call myself an early adopter. That has been the greatest value add, if you want to say, is like, because the fear is, which is sometimes true, and of course last year too with all the hype, the AI hype, and everyone's like, hey, AI is going to take over everyone's job overnight. No one's going to be working. It's just going to be either robots or digital things, and Skynet and Terminator is going to be here. But here we are, 2026 Q1, almost over, and yet jobs aren't like taken over overnight per se. And if anything, I heard that the models, the frontier models that, this whole AGI that, they were saying it was going to happen like by the end of last year. I remember when that was a big thing, didn't hit AGI. And now they're pushing it to 2030. So I'm starting to realize, like, yes, humans are still needed in the loop, and we can't bypass that importance. When they understand that, okay, yeah, like if I can adapt AI into my workflows, then the fear is not AI is going to replace me. The fear is, the thing is, what happens with AI is like AI really just optimizes my work. It makes me do what used to take X amount of hours, like you were saying. Now I can do it much quicker, and it's almost like the people that are able to, see that, use it, adapt it, they are the ones that are going to have this career insurance. Versus the knowledge workers that are like, oh my God, and they're in this fear state that they're going to, get replaced by AI. I mean, what are your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, I think we're choosing our own adventure, but I think it's also a little bit our exposure, our backgrounds, again, how our brains work. And so I will say there's definitely some industries being decimated, like as we speak, right? Where people are being let go.
They are.
And as much as I'd like to say it's just about optimization, I also think there's so much optionality that also people are having trouble even building or thinking about focus and what to do. And so there's probably mental instability, on multiple levels around this. People losing footing on not just focus, but again, like if you don't feel like you have job security, maybe then it's really hard to focus and concentrate on, let's launch a new skill. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a bifurcated world where, it's a little scary what is happening, and it's also exciting and there's a lot of opportunity. But I think the onus is on the individual, where it's like, you hear it again and again probably, but like free up the time. Like this isn't just switching to another task to start diving into AI for the first time. Like you need to carve time out in your schedule repeatedly. And don't be scared when I say this. Like you're going to realize it's amazing.
Right.
What can you be doing that is smarter and better? And where can you be more human? Where can you use AI where AI is going to work well? And where can you be more human? And what I will quickly say, because I think this is an interesting example, in World War II, we basically, created these machines, right? Like the washing machine and, dishwasher. And we're like, okay, the women have more time. Like they don't have to be at home, like doing these tasks. And these days, what should have been, right, the future of ease and luxury, where we had these machines doing things at home, like we take them for granted and we just put more and more and more on our plates. And I think that we are probably going to hit some kind of reckoning where it's like information data overload, mental health matters. Like I actually have been practicing more Tai Chi and space, like finding space and grounding and silence and dog cuddles and sauna, obviously, alongside Claude Code. And I'm relearning boundaries with Claude. I said that. Claude, you can't be in my bedroom after 8:30. Maybe not after 8. Maybe I'll bring it to 7:30. But the point is, like, I am reminding myself, like, as hard as I'm going on robotics or AI or whatever we want to call it, like, I'm going hard on being a human and creating and making music and making art.
Wow. Man, so much to unpack there, but I promise you I'll do my best to unpack because there's so many gems that was just dropped there. And I mean, what you mentioned is we are, the human experience right now, we are at a, if you want to say inflection point where we are transitioning into this digital world, right? And I know we have a section, which this is the best part to jump into that section, about the importance of mental health and the inner side, right, of entrepreneur and an investor. And I'd love to, because you already started mentioning some of the ways and modalities that you take, but I want you to do a deeper dive into that. But you're 100% right. Like, I got into AI because I'm also like a big nerd when it comes to like sci-fi. I've heard of the term singularity, and I've read books about singularity theories and all these. I'm very into the future. And so that's actually, there's this book I read called Life 3.0, and it opened my eyes into where we were going. And so I dove all in. But the flip side, unfortunately, sometimes of going so much into this world of AI is we oftentimes could lose the human side of us. And it's so important. I love how you said it, like you reconnect back to that human side. So I'd like to talk about, what are, processes and ways that you get grounded and stay grounded and be able to navigate this like massive transition that we're having.
Yeah. So I'll bring up an example here, which is plant medicine, right? Like we live in Colorado and
Yes,
we know
we
that
do.
a lot of people like to dabble there. And,
Yes.
mental health in general, like what's your toolkit? What have you invested in? How much do you know yourself? So if you're going to jump into a plant medicine journey as an example,
Sure.
the practitioner, if you're being led in a, intentional way, they're not just going to throw you in and be like, here, take this. It's like, where are you coming from? Like, what is your intention? What's your grounding? What are your skills around breathing and finding, presence and self? And similarly, I think about that kind of journey and that kind of thing with AI or anything tough, any experience that's going to maybe break you open or introduce you to a new world. It's how are you going to move in that experience without overwhelm? How are you going to evolve and maybe integrate so that you understand on some level what you can take with you and maybe the new being that's now experienced AI or plant medicine or whatever that journey is, maybe death. How do you live and how do you show up embodied and full and like not scared in a cave, mentally ill. And I'm really thankful that I started my mindfulness journey and, just like diving into these concepts of what is breath, what is movement, what is health, what is physical health, what's nutrition before my first deep losses in life. Because each time I went through something, that shattering, like the grounding and my skills built further. And suicide loss, my gosh, really tough. We've had numerous in my family. And to recognize the brilliance of like somatic work, somatic therapy of like releasing and finding trauma in your muscles and your myofascia and like finding gut intuition because that's real. We have a brain in our gut, like allowing the grief to wash over us and through us and like recognize how do we want to live and how do we honor spirit. Like all of these things I'm bringing up because they're very human. And I think there's so much crossover with that world of AI, which is you touch source, right? Whether it's plants, whether it's AI. And then it's like, okay, oh my gosh, what just fucking happened? Like what just happened? And how do I move? And do I trust myself? And can I step into discernment and agency? And what do I want? And how do I breathe through this? Because you can get lost in the infinite, right? Like you can get lost because it's so big and ever expansive. And you can find yourself. And if you've never been through something tough, to jump into plants or jump into, I don't know, AI connectivity, that'd be a lot. But to recognize as humans, like the grounding, the Zen, the, Tai Chi, like whatever you want to call this thing, love of our, pets, like the presence in that, the naps, because my brain is on overload from Claude mania, right? Like you need boundaries. Like if you don't learn those lessons, you're going to like implode.
Sure. Especially because you even mentioned earlier with the information overload that we're experiencing and our brain could only handle so much, right? We have a limit, to the information that we can obtain. I mean, you started off talking about some really great points about, your, I'll say mindfulness, and I want to kind of even unpack a little bit more about your spiritual journey, because I know we're actually we're in a group, and we and that group is all about high conscious individuals and entrepreneurs. So let's dive into a little bit more about, especially to the audience that may understand the importance of what you're talking about when it comes to mindfulness or even spirituality. Like, what does it mean to be, in your opinion, like spiritual without any sort of dogmatic, narrative, and how does that influence your business, your day-to-day, your well-being?
Yeah, spirituality is like a big part of my life today.
Love it.
I think the, coming to and learning, who I am, how I want to move in the world, like it's all so interconnected. And I think if you're open to it, and not everyone maybe is, but if you're open to it, if you've been, broken open through, again, like deep grief or, tough events, this invitation to say, wait, like we live in an interconnected world, which we could be talking about nature, energy, Claude code.
I love
Sorry, I had to do it.
Yeah.
But like, there's this connection in this like quantum field. Like we all know, or if you don't know, look at like Schrodinger's cat. Like, things are a wave on the
Yes.
quantum level, but turns into a particle when it's seen. Like
Yep.
our vision changes a state, right? Like you witnessing me as a human, you change my state. I don't think Claude's witnessing me, and maybe that'll happen at some
Not
point,
yet,
but I don't know.
Yeah.
And just recognizing these principles and like what is spirituality, it's things that happen. Like I think it was all meant to be. I think that every time you go through something so damn difficult, like these are lessons, and these are us uncovering, the soul journey and the experience of we're coming back to ourselves, or an invitation to come back to ourselves. Maybe not everyone does that.
Sure.
And yeah, like I've gone deep. Like I feel my lineage. I feel the pain of women. Like I want to cry when I say that, like all over the world. I feel women who haven't been silenced, who've been killed, who've been beaten and raped. Like I feel it because I'm open to it. And to me, this spirit, right? Like it's not dogmatic, because for me, it's I'm feeling this kind of flow in terms of how I move through the world, how I speak, how I show up, where I feel like I have this ability to say, like, let me observe and let me be present and let me slow down and let me heal and recognize there is something greater. And I'm not going to name it as like the name of a god per se, but
Sure.
I'm going to call it spirit. You can call it different things.
Right.
I feel connection with spirit on the other side, like my cousin Z, who we lost, my mom, like, and I think again, these are invitations, the way we live. Like, I feel like I'm very alive today. I feel like I live very fully, and this journey has allowed me to show up and recognize, like, I am many beings and many things, but I'm also this integrated, like, feminine, masculine, like, understand and live in grief and death and alive and, black and white and hurt and pain and love and laughter, like all of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think for me, I mean, we could talk about this for like literally millennia, but like, I think
Yeah,
it's just
it's
like
beautiful.
it's being in touch. It's being in
Sure.
touch with like, what is being alive, and like, it changes the way I move, the way I invest, like all of these things. Yeah.
I'm speechless because that was so good. And, of course, that could have a huge effect on, how you invest, like you just mentioned, where your money flows, right? And I think you even mentioned that money is energy or energy is money, this vice versa. Do you feel like Wall Street, if we may go back to that, do you feel like there needs to be a spiritual awakening in Wall Street, or like to where more and more people in that world? Because I mean, look, they have an important job that they're doing, facilitating and moving, money of society's money back and forth. And so you would think it would be very important to have people that are grounded with some sort of like important truths and values that want to do good for society, that are doing those sort of jobs, right? You would think it would be important to have those people that are going through spiritual awakening handling Wall Street, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to be the case. So like, I can see that it's affecting you and it's helping you. How important do you feel like spirituality is in the world of finance and investing?
Yeah, I think so. There's this word that I like came up with, and I realized it was actually a word, and it was so resonant. It's a Finnish word, sisu, S-I-S-U, and it's basically growth through adversity. And I came across it like the other month, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. Like, I've chosen hard things. I've chosen to be in rooms as a young woman, as somebody who doesn't look like everyone else, who's treated a certain kind of way, lots of Me Too, lots of harassment, lots of misogyny. lots of, being underestimated, not being, elevated for, things I brought. And I think so much of spiritual awakening or waking up, let's say, to like deeply held values and moving differently, like it's about hitting a wall, and it's about climbing mountains, and it's about being held back and breaking through. And I guess what I'm trying to say is when you look at Wall Street, right, or the OG Wall Street, if it was a bunch of like white men, not to hate on white men by any means,
Sure.
if they didn't have an experience of adversity, like deep loss, deep adversity, do they have the invitation to grow into more spiritually open? Like, I don't know. And do I think we definitely would like more grounded folks, like operating financial flows? Like, abso-fucking-lutely. Do I think that that's also like an idealistic view that we expect that like a bunch of people in finance are going to like all of a sudden want to be grounded? Yeah, I think that's tough. I think there's, brilliant ways though where the world is waking up in ways. And I will say the younger generations where they're not even talking about, I'm a guy, I'm a girl. It's like, we're all on the spectrum. Like we care about values. We care about the environment. Like, climate change is real. Like these things that politically have been so weaponized that our generations and older, some people won't even engage in the dialogue, or they're so just like out there with politics that they can't even think straight. Yeah. And the younger generations, they do seem more inclined to be empathetic for people, humans. I love the phrase anima mundi. Everything has like consciousness and spirit and interconnectivity.
Okay.
And I don't know, like I think that we're headed in a direction like that, if that makes sense. But I don't think that we're gonna wake up and all of a sudden like things are gonna all of a sudden be like good in all these crappy places. And I'll also say like, because I loved this when I was chatting with these women yesterday. One brought up this brilliant point, which is like, where's your money? Like, where are you housing your money? I think it's like they can lend on deposits, like maybe 7 or 8-fold or something. Like you put into a big bank, like they're not doing anything in your community, so recognizing even if everybody's not grounded in an organization, a community bank may be a way better place to house your assets than like a big bank that's just acquiring and, operating with, money overseas. Like, so there are things that we can do and decisions we can make, even if the people touching the money aren't all, like zenned out.
Yes.
And I get that, right? Like you need some ego to play in finance. Like I get that.
You do.
Yeah.
No, such a great point. And by the way, also shout out to Alpine Bank, super great community bank we've collaborated with, and so on point. Like, yeah, there are, and I'm starting to learn as one that's in the finance space as well, that yes, there are like banks that are out there that truly want to invest in the community. And there are people in the finance world, people in the investing world that love to invest and make an impact in the community. But you just have to look. You have to.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, sometimes you attract, because I feel like that's
you attract
what
you
our
magnetize.
relationship is,
yeah.
right? I mean, I think I knew you through another friend, and so it was an attract.
Yeah.
It was an attraction situation
because
everything you're saying on the spiritual standpoint is essentially what I'm going through as well as an entrepreneur, which, and I'm sure you can even probably relate to this, that's also a balance in itself.
Yeah.
Trying to balance spirituality and this like important awakening, if you want to call it, as well as understanding the importance of like running a business and structure and order and being very intentional about like your day to day and your future. Sometimes it is a balance to try to do that.
They're two different worlds.
Right. What would you say to people to help get that balance?
Yeah. It really does feel like two different worlds. And when I make this statement that like, call it, I have multiple personalities. And I wouldn't say like I'm schizophrenic by any means, but like I do feel very spiritual and I feel very business minded, and I feel artistic and I feel grounded and I sometimes feel like ecstatic with energy. It's like, these are all me.
Sure.
And I'm not saying it's easy per se, but I think when you unpack like what are your interests and what do you want to explore and try, and recognize like we are multidimensional, and some of us may be more curious about some of these disparate categories than other, but like just because I didn't identify as a crypto bro didn't mean I couldn't jump into vibe coding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like when you're open to trying things and you're open to, yeah, I'm this and I'm also these other things.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels like a richer lived experience. And the way that I'm able to step into these energies, decisions, intuition of like what's right for me, how do I want to express? Do I want to step into my masculine energy or do I want to stay in my feminine right now? Right? Like it's so cool when you've know enough about yourself that you can tap these things and move between the states. And it's so interesting. Like I mean, I could talk about this for so long, but it's like, I think a lot of people are caged in something that they think they should be. And there's so much work to do to unpack and to break open and say, wait, like, oh, that was a projection, or that wasn't actually the authentic. And I'm on stages all the time with people and I see their masks and that's okay. But I'm unmasked and I might scare them. And that's fine because I'm living my full life.
Well, I did say we're gonna have a part 2, and we're gonna go deeper into that because I mean you're saying such great things, and what I'm even hearing is that the human experience is non-binary. We're not. We're a spectrum, essentially. And I love how you said like once you understand yourself, you can understand how to access the different parts of yourself, right? When you need it. And then therefore you don't have to like be like I'm this or I'm a accountant or I'm a this and so I have to mold into that forever, and so therefore I can't be creative.
One statement on this which I love is I saw a post recently a friend had shared like if you're focused on like who you are, like how do you become that next version? And I think to be amorphous and realize like like we're evolving and the identity is changing. If I'm sticking with the identity of who I think I am, how do I grow into that next version of myself?
Yeah. So important. And also even that touches on the importance of letting go. Yeah. Which is so hard, isn't it?
Which is huge. I mean, I think a big part of living in spirit like is that concept of flow state and it's not holding, right? And even I lived a lot more in my masculine and now I'm a lot more in my feminine. And just like, what is meant to be and what are you attracting and like, how are you moving? And I'm not forcing things these days. I may still choose hard paths because I'm that kind of individual and I like growth, but also like what's for me and what's not, and identifying that.
Love it. Of course we would love to do this all day, but as we are approaching the top of the hour, I want to ground us, bring us down back to I guess investment topics and talk about when is it too early to raise, or is it too early? Is it ever too early to raise capital?
I think that so often people, whether they're looking for investors capital or investors are looking to launch, it's I'm waiting until, and you could say that about so many things in life as a metaphor. And so often the blocker isn't actually there. It's like, can you start building before you have capital? Probably. Like, can you bootstrap? Probably. Like, are you ever going to be 100% confident or ready? Probably not. Like, meaning when you really dig into this stuff, so often these blockers people think they have like aren't real. And so for me, I look for a certain amount of execution before I write a check. I'm not saying there needs to be revenues. Some investors need $1 million of revenues, right? So there's different investor types, but for me, I want to see some execution. It could be just very thoughtfully like, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to deploy the funds, like we've done this before, we are knowledgeable, we're curious, we're growth minded. Great. But if somebody's like, well, here's like the deck, and they have no team identified, they don't have the expertise, like that's not getting me excited. So I'm looking for some type of thoughtfulness and execution, but again, it doesn't need revenues.
And to even piggyback on then that question in terms of what sort of traction matters today?
Again, it's really dependent because some of the deals I see are pre-seed and I love them, and some of them are Series A, and I'm like, I don't like where they're trending or what they've done, and against that valuation. But I think I think context is everything, always. And so if it's a strong team, if I'm like, I see that grit, like I want to invest in this human. And by the way, what is a business? A business, who are the humans behind it? What's the energy behind the humans?
Right.
What's the energy behind the products, what they're doing, right? Like, that's what I'm investing in. It's people, 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 people. And it's not about a good idea. Like, anyone can have a good idea. Who are the people behind it? What's the energy behind it? And what's the execution look like?
Love it. Love it. Love it. Speaking of people, let's talk about, the gender gaps that you mentioned, and even just other like inclusivity, topics when it comes to investing, right? Because there is that issue too of not everyone is being involved in this massive amount of capital that is flowing out there. So, what gender gaps have you seen? Especially, you mentioned a lot about, being a woman, and what steps can, whether it be women or people in the minority community, do to start closing that gap, at least slightly?
I think it's engaging in the conversation, for one. It's knowing your spend matters. Even consumer spend, right? Women are 85% of consumer spend globally. 85%. Like, vote with your money. Like, what businesses should be alive? Look at, who's getting funding. We get some of this wealth transfer, and then also get more people waking up who have assets, thinking about being private investors. That will change that. Right now, less than 2% of women get, funded. BIPOC women far worse. Let's talk about indigenous populations. I mean, it's atrocious. And by the way, this is venture funding. You look at startups, and actually a lot of women are starting small businesses, but a lot of them aren't necessarily quote unquote like venture startups. Sure. Small businesses are great, right? They're also the backbone of so much of like how we operate. And lending can be really difficult for these businesses. Like, where are you showing up? Where are you putting your money? Be aware there is bias in the system, but by getting more people conversational, understanding whether it's the vernacular, where they're putting their money, thinking about, I don't know, community banks, or just getting involved with community and thinking, hey, like, I can invest, like, this matters, where I shop matters. I really think that changes everything. And these conversations are really impactful.
Indeed. And quite frankly, I would say that's probably one of the best spots to wrap it up, because such a thoughtful podcast, like I said before, so many nuggets being dropped, and I know this is going to be the first of many with us. Is there any, like, let's say, tips or parting words that you would want to leave to whether it be entrepreneurs that are looking to raise and or just like investors that may not see the way that you are seeing the landscape? What sort of like takeaways would you want to leave the audience with?
I'll say that this is probably applicable to AI workflows, to investing, to fundraising, and it's just start. Just start. You don't have to know everything. You don't need the confidence. Just start. And I'm a data nerd. Get some data, optimize, test, whatever, but just start.
Awesome. Indeed. So you got that, guys. Just start. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. Man, this was so great. Like I said, I know you're short on time, so that's why we're also cutting it short. Otherwise, trust me, I would have gone on and on with the conversations, but this has been so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a pleasure.
All right. Over and out.